Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at a book which comes to us from Oxford University Press. It caught my eye as a particularly interesting book because this is an area of law which I've always found fascinating. It's called The Law of International Watercourses, 3rd edition, now of course written by Stephen C. McCaffrey, and it's part of the OUP's Oxford International Law Library. Elizabeth was the lead writer on the book review, and we've got a title we've given our review: From the Mekong to the Mississippi, the Legal Ramifications of International Watercourses. That's what you've got with this book. Let's have a look at it. It's got a nice little dust cover. There's the front. It's got a spine there. In fact, you can see that bit, and then you can see the spine as well. Then it's got some stuff on the back setting out the contents of the book, and it's reasonably easy to read. Opening it, you've got some blurb on the inside dust cover there about other titles from OUP, and then at the front you've got some detailed information about the book itself, and then a little bit about Stephen McCaffrey. He is the Carol Olson Endowed Professor of International Law, University of the Pacific, McGeorge School of Law. So there we are. That's where he comes from. Now, this is the index at the back. You can see the index, and this time round the index is by page numbering. So it's not paragraph numbering. There's the index at the start, right at the back. But it's actually page numbering, not paragraph numbering. And there's a very detailed bibliography right at the back as well. It's an A to Z bibliography, but it's very, very detailed because he's done a huge amount of work. There's the front of the bibliography there. Then, of course, working backwards, you've got some annexes. Now, let me go, don't worry too much about those. Let me go to the front of the book, and that is there is the title page, and there's the detail about the Oxford International Law Library, because this is about international law, of course. And then there's the blurb about OUP, and then there's a dedication, which I'll just show you and just read that dedication. I always like to show the dedications because a lot of people are involved, not just the writer, but all his family and all his friends. So it's always nice to have a dedication. This is to his children. Now, let's have a look at the contents. A detailed section of contents there. Various parts. There are a total actually of 4 parts, I believe. Yes, 4 parts. An introduction, evolution and theoretical base of the law of international watercourses, the major cases and controversies, a survey of state practice, then part 4, fundamental rights and obligations. That's under the UN Convention. And then right at the end you've got you've got various obligations set out. Then you've got 2 annexes at the back. The UN Convention Annex and so forth. Now, the preface to the 3rd edition is always worth reading because there have been some changes since the last one came in. You can see there's footnoting is there as well, and there's quite a lot of detail from the author. And then we've got something very useful for this area, abbreviations, because there's a lot of them, and you can see the usual UN stuff is there. The various UN bodies, WHO, the World Health Organization, so all of those are there, and it's done for a reason, and that is because it's so easy to suddenly get a little block and think, oh, I can't remember what that abbreviation is. So you've got them there, and it does help. I've always found that very important with land law. This, of course, is water law, if you like, but it does help to get an idea. Then you've got treaties, which are set out, and these are this is table of treaties by name of watercourses, and it's looking at all the various ones and all of the famous ones that you will know about. I mean, you will have heard some of them. For instance, Niagara, you've got Rio Grande, you've got, as I mentioned, you've got the Rhine, you've also got the Nile, you've got all sorts of the usual ones, Lake Titicaca. So you've got a very interesting selection. Then you've got the table of treaties and other instruments, again by name. This is a different book from your normal law book, but it's a really fascinating area, and I was quite taken by this. So the table of treaties are fairly substantial. Then you've got the case law, and that's again international and obviously by various countries. And there's not that much case law, but there's enough. Then you get part 1, the introduction, and you can see the structure. You've got the chapter 1, you've got a little bit of an index just at the front. Then you've got the introduction itself, you've got footnoting, and you can see there's no paragraph numbering, but there's lots and lots of footnotes. There we go. Now, what do we say about this book? Because as I said, I thought it was a fascinating book to look at. Well, as I say, Elizabeth and I talked about the book in some detail, and this is what we say. There could be quite a few lawyers out there who might assume that a legal text on watercourses might not be directly relevant to the nature and demands of their practice. They'd be wrong. This detailed, copiously researched and eminently readable text on international watercourses from OUP sheds the light of rigorous scrutiny and special expertise on a host of issues relating to international watercourses, environmental, of course, as well as legal. When the subject is water, all kinds of problems rise to the surface. There's no witticism intended there, really. So it's fortunate that this highly regarded text is now available in a completely updated third edition. With almost 700 pages, every conceivable aspect of the law relating to international watercourses is covered, as the point is emphasised that water is a vital resource without which human life or any life would not survive. Water therefore generates a number of problems relating to its scarcity, or in some cases the total absence of it, in arid areas. And these factors alone, of course, can initiate disputes and cause wars. It's happened all too often throughout human history, says the author Stephen McCaffrey, and he reminds us of this, and of course that's very useful background. And as we move relentlessly on into the 21st century, it appears that little progress has been made to ensure that scarce water resources do not become even scarcer, as the author quickly establishes in his preface. Well worth reading, of course, his preface, because it's the kind of scary point which is definitely there throughout. Now, the author both states and implies that legal issues follow on from or emerge as a result of environmental and demographic problems relating to water, primarily fresh water, of course. Disaster, or something close to it, says the author, hangs like a sword of Damocles over arid areas from the Asian subcontinent to the Middle East and the southwestern United States. Droughts, he continues, have contributed to national upheavals, such as the interminable conflict in Syria, and he adds that water-related conflicts can quickly become international, drawing in some of the world's most powerful states. And you can obviously see the problems that develop. Elaborating further on the enormity of the problems of water scarcity, the author relates the experience of his native state of California, where a fifth season has been identified and named as wildfire season. Now recognised as a year-round phenomenon, wildfires generally result from tinder-dry vegetation caused obviously by lack of rain. Now, while consequences like this can't be eliminated, they can be mitigated by various means, including cooperation and a workable, enforceable regulatory framework, indicating an awareness and an acknowledgement of the effects of climate change. And the obvious conclusion being here that the environmentalists, ecologists and their ilk, as well as environmental lawyers, might like to have a read of this book, because as I said right at the beginning, this is a really interesting area, and some probably hitherto many people have never even considered, and that's why it got my attention. The new edition, of course, focuses on the 1997 UN Convention on the Law of the Non-Navigational Uses of International Watercourses, which came into force in 2014, including its compatibility with other conventions against a background of new cases involving substantive and procedural rights as well as obligations. But what exactly are watercourses? There seems to be a variety of definitions, but basically a watercourse consists of A, a channel through which water flows, and B, the water. So there are little watercourses and large watercourses. The Rhine, the Limpopo, the Mekong, the Mississippi and the Colorado are among the many examples of the latter, which with most crossing international boundaries, of course, and therefore trembling on the brink of generating a variety of difficulties and disputes as the world's population increases. And of course we are living in a global community today. Let me conclude by saying it's a great book, this book, and it's well worth reading. An enhanced understanding of these problems which I've just outlined, however, might well lead to some sensible solutions which have been identified by McCaffrey's book, he being an acknowledged expert in this field. Indubitably then, this is a book which serves a place in every well-stocked law library, because it's an area which is there, if you like, under the surface, but it's one that is bubbling away, and it's a fascinating subject area in its own right. The date of publication of the third edition is cited as at the 28th of February 2019. One last look at the book. There it is. There's the front, there's the spine, and then there's the back. And then just opening it in the middle, the major cases. These are some of the big cases where there have been problems. And you can see the text is quite dense, actually. There's no paragraph numbering. It's quite heavy, the text in places. There's a lot of reference material. And as I indicated earlier, the bibliography, in fact, I'll show you it, the bibliography at the back is a very substantial one. And he's done his homework. And I did find this a very interesting international book, because it does cross a lot of boundaries. And as I say, it's a book which you think, well, what's all this about? And then you have a look at it and you open it, and it's really a good read. So thank you very much indeed to everybody concerned in the production of the new edition. Very grateful. Bye-bye.